Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to Know Your Gear QA live podcast number 249. Hey, we're almost at 250. Hopefully everybody had a great week. Mine was pretty good. Well, I'm sure I'll talk about it sometime during the show. Before we get started, I want to thank Amanda and Unfreaking Believable as the moderators and jumping on Grumpy Mike Guitar. And so if you haven't seen them, they have the blue wrench next to their name. I have my moderator cup today. Actually, as I always should disclose, I have the B-Stock moderator cup. Mine has the blemish on it that allowed me to get it. Otherwise, I don't think I earned one. But my wife was nice enough to, when she made them, to take the one that was messed up and give it to me. So I got one. All right. If you're new to the show, it's super easy. If you want to get a subject to me or a question, please put the question marks at the beginning of what you're typing. That lets me know it looks for you. If you're a member, I look for the icon, the icon that says you're a member of the channel. And of course, super chats. I try to get to as many of those as possible each week. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. And of course, thank you for coming up with great subjects and questions. Really, you kind of drive the show. This is the show where I interview you guys every week. It's what do you guys want to talk about is what we talk about. Susan says, as Phil sips his vodka. No vodka for me. I talked about maybe today would be the day where we would do the Iron Maiden beer. I want to do this thing where at the end of every month we do an episode where I try an adult beverage from a band or something like that. And unfortunately, I'm not ready. I am not 100% yet. I still have a little congestion. I have a cold. So I have a cold and I just been not in the mood. So as you know how that goes, you got to wait until you're ready, till you're in the mood, especially since I don't want, I want to work. So each day this week, I've been just like last week, I've been working and trying to get back to 100% so I can actually put in more hours and get more stuff done. Okay, so a couple things. We have some people come early and put some questions and subjects. We have that to talk about, which is always fun. And one of the questions that came early, I really want to talk about. I really like this question. I like this subject, and it's probably going to be maybe a little controversial, even though it shouldn't be. This one comes from 3J Music, who says, "Hey Phil, what are your thoughts?" He means mine on signature gear. Does a guitar amp or pedal with an artist's name on it sway you either way when it comes to buying? Absolutely. I'm going to talk about me first. Absolutely does come to sway me when I'm buying. I didn't strategically do this, but just looking at you, obviously I'm looking at myself through the screen. I can see I have my Nuno Bettencourt signature, my Eddie Van Halen signature. I'm pointing at those guitars. The John Mayer signature right there. And I don't see any other signatures. I'm just looking in the room. But I have a few others. I have a Joe Satriani. I have a Jim. I have a Stu Hem Urge bass. I'm trying to I have Sinister Gates guitar with a Staniak. I have a few signature guitars. Let me look. I'm just looking behind me, making sure that there's not ones I can reference. I like signature guitars. I have no problem with that. I don't know what it is. It doesn't bug me to have a different artist, an artist's guitar or something in my hands. I like nice instruments, nice amps, nice pedals that I like. And sometimes artists have feedback that really know how to dial in. Let's face it, the people out there grinding it every day, making music, performing music, recording music, these people are going to have insights into making instruments far beyond the average player or even the R&D side of a company. That being said, there's a dark side to the signature series stuff. And the dark side for me is that it's like a moving target. See, here's the thing. And again, I want to go back in time with y'all. I'm trying to think. I want to say 20 years ago, but we might have to go back further, right? Let's talk about the 80s. Let's talk about the mid to late 80s. Some of those that's far back, and some people it's not that far back. Depends on how old you are. When you think of signature guitars 30 years ago, there are a few. There was obviously Eddie Van Halen. He had everything from the Wolfgang, before, and of course everybody was copying the striped guitars. You had Steve Vai's Gem, like in '87, that comes out, and I'm not, tons of guitars, by the way. artists started. George Lynch had ESP guitars. I mean, there was Kirk Hammett. There was guitar players with signature instruments. And as we know, that exploded. It exploded to the point where, I've said this before, where so many artists got guitars, it got confusing to the point where sometimes I would like see a signature guitar come out to this day. But I mean, this isn't new. This is 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I would open up a Guitar World and there'd be an artist holding a guitar and they're like, hey, it's this guy or this gal's first, new signature guitar. And I don't know who this person is. And then you'd have to like search to find their band. And then when you saw the band, you're like, I don't know who this band is. You know what I mean? And then it was so obscure. And so at first, I think a lot of people reaction was like mine was like yours, where when we saw people we didn't know, we're like, why would they get a signature guitar? Who the hell are they? You know what I mean? And slowly over time, what you realize is that everyone is a fan of something, right? I mean, it's, in fact, some of the smaller, less known artists that have signature guitars are really effective because of the fact that their fan base is so diehard. They're so into it. And I can attest to that because there are artists that I absolutely love in every way, shape, and form, and they've never had signature guitars. And if they did, I would absolutely get one because they actually mean more to me than the signature guitars I currently own. I just love their music. I love their sound. I would love to have one of their signature guitars. But that's not what I'm talking about when I say it's a moving target. Signature instruments, more so than pedals and amps, okay, but all of them are up there. Guitars, I want to focus on guitars. Signature guitars have slowly turned into this thing where I call it, like I said, a moving target. It means, let's say you have an artist and you absolutely love their sound, and you buy one of their signature guitars. It's almost guaranteed that it's going to be obsolete. Before you can even put a year into the instrument, playing it, going, finally, I have my favorite artist's tone or feel or guitar or look or whatever it is, or all the above that you're interested in. There's a new version. And I don't mean new colors. New colors are going to happen. Obviously, Steve Vai with the gems, the Silver Skies, for example, they come out with colors every year. There's always a new color. I get that. There's always more options. Let's find the color that everybody's really interested in. Maybe they'll buy that. Plus, the artist probably gets tired of playing the same color. But that's not what I'm talking about. It's like it's constantly evolving into, well, now the guitar has these pickups. Oh, and now the guitar has these frets. And now the guitar is slightly different. We slightly changed this, and we added this, and we've changed the neck profile. Fender, of course, has had this problem over the years where signature artist guitars neck profiles have changed, where the artist goes, I don't like that profile anymore, and they change it, they flatten it, they round it. And now you got to get the newest version if you want the new version of that. And again, it almost is funny to me. And this is why I said I don't think it's a controversial subject, but this is where it will be a little bit controversial. I'm not calling out musicians and artists for doing this. I'm not saying that, sometimes it's a cash grab. That's just reality. But obviously they have the right, especially as a musician, to grow, evolve, and change. They get tired of something and they want to change it. But a lot of times, and I don't mean the majority, I just mean maybe, 2 out of 10 times, does seem like there's just changes made just because that's going to drive up more sales. And the irony of that is the person who's buying this is trying to connect to the artist, and yet the company and the artist are constantly, like I said, making a moving target. You can't do it. And that's why yeah, Aaron Short Music said the Silver Sky has changed over the years. I want the 2022 now. What's funny about this is absolutely the pickups have slowly changed. The finishes have changed, aside from the colors. I think the neck profiles even changed on the Silver Skies, slightly different. And again, every artist has the right to evolve and come back and say, now that I've had the instrument for some time, I want to make some changes. And there's truth in that. And of course, there's also truth in hey, if we change it, everybody who loves this artist is going to want to get the newest version of the iPhone, so to speak, is where it feels like. It's like, you mean even though my phone still works, I got to get a new phone? Yeah. Even though this guitar is great, I got to get the newest guitar if I really want the newest thing. And so my feeling on signature instruments are exactly that way. I like them. I'm sorry, I missed the name on the comment, but somebody said that the signatures are for posers, and that is essentially where it started. It started as simple as that. Musicians, and whether that meant entry level student level, hobbyists, working professional musicians, working semi-professional musicians, part-time, full-time, whatever you call it. There was a time where, yeah, no one really bought signature guitars. It wasn't a thing. It definitely developed. And by that nature, think about this. And if you look back to those times, it was also when you didn't see, I don't want to say real artists, but we're going to say real artists, for so to speak. We're credible artists. They didn't do commercials, you know. I still remember the first time I saw a Dodge commercial with an Aerosmith song, of Nike with the Beatles, Revolution. I was like in shock. I remember that to this day. I mean, think about this. I can remember like the Challenger explosion. Like there's things and events in my life that of course, you know, as a young adult to adult, these moments in time are ingrained in your head. The fact that something as crazy, as tragic as that, the Challenger explosion, and the day I saw a Beatles song on a Nike's commercial are ingrained into me to the point where I remember that being such a prolific moment in my life is downright strange, for sure. But it also tells a story of that's how it was then. You just didn't see that. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And Jeff says, we're all posers. Absolutely, Jeff. That's where I'm going to go with this, by the way. You know, a lot of us remember artists like Moby. If you remember the artist Moby, he became hugely successful selling and licensing his music to TV shows and movies because real traditional artists didn't. There was a time where artists were just not going to do that. And I don't mean like, you know, obviously, you know, Aerosmith, the Beatles, the Who, Zeppelin. We're not talking about them. We're talking about like the Backstreet Boys wouldn't, you know, pop music wouldn't license out music for a commercial. You know what I mean? Even pop music wasn't, quote unquote, a sellout to that level. And sellout being the term at the time. That was the term at the time. Now, some of you are probably right now like, they still are sellouts. You still believe all these things, posers, sellouts. You have a right to, of course. But I think as time evolved, you learned the real reality is this. Whether you wanted it to happen or not, whether the artist wanted to happen or not, it was an evolution that happened of economics. The reality is, look at me, exactly right what we're doing now, watching this podcast. There's 780 of you hanging out on a Friday. We're talking about guitars and stuff on this podcast. There's tons of content being created on YouTube for pennies. You know what I mean? Spotify paying pennies or quarters of pennies, fractions. Well, I say pennies, that's actually a lie. YouTube and Spotify, all them pay fractions of pennies for volume. The amount of content it takes to create $10,000 of funds is astronomical, although obtainable. So it's a double-edged sword. Some artists are upset with Spotify and platforms like YouTube and stuff for basically paying so little, but then smaller artists are just happy to make $500 a month, which pays a car payment or puts towards rent and makes a lifestyle that was unobtainable to them obtainable. There's definitely two sides to all that story. But the point back to this is, the reality is that artists, and this is where I'm going with this, I believe the moving target thing, I believe the artist thing became out of necessity. More and more artists are like, how do I make money? I don't make money off this anymore, and I make less off that. And look at just merch. Think about something that's supposed to be super profitable. There shouldn't be anything probably more profitable than a t-shirt, right? You can buy t-shirts. Again, inflation's different now, but let's just say 20 years ago, you could buy a t-shirt for $2.50 printed and volume and sell it at a concert for $30. This is 20 years ago you could do this. Look at the revenue can be driven from t-shirts, but then the vendors decided, well, we're gonna take a piece of that. And you know what I mean? Everybody starts taking a piece of that, and it gets dwindled down. And of course, even I remember, I think I was at Motley Crue Kiss. I think that's where I was at, where it was the first time it ever happened to me. I was at the concert. You know, I had bought a couple $10, $15 beers, whatever it was. It was, you know, you can't even, the feeling that you go get a beer and you hand them a 20 and they give you like $1.50 back and you're like, what the hell just happened? And you paid a fortune for the show. And I remember walking by the shirt tents, and I remember it was the first time I got out my phone and I go, I like these shirts, but I wonder if they're online. And I found the shirts online. I don't mean copies. They were the shirts. The bands were selling them right off their websites for less. And I was like, I'll just order one online. And so, I mean, you got to understand, and that changes things dynamic. I mean, I'm still buying from the band, supporting the band, but these dynamics change. And all this has to do with signature gear. So the $1 million thing is, I don't know why I'm saying the $1 million thing. The $1 million question, the question I always have is when it comes to thoughts on signature gear, is it became a necessity for artists to make money. It's just a necessity. They have to make money every way they can. That's just the reality of the business. Remember, artists are no different than athletes. Their time frame in the spotlight can be a long time, but most of the time is not. So you have to make enough money, not so you can live forever and retire off what you did for a 5-year period. It's so that when you go back into some kind of normal environment where you go back to playing small clubs and have to pick up a side job, you know, I mean, at least there's a little bit of something for your effort, especially if you created tens of millions of dollars and, you know, everybody took a big chunk of it. So I think that's why the artists drive to not only make the signature gear, but also keep changing it. I personally, like I said, I like signature gear because I've decided mentally that signature gear to me is like memorabilia. My first problem with signature gear, believe it or not, was with the Eddie Van Halen Frankenstein reissues that were $25,000. The reason I say issue, I mean, I was confused. Right? I'm an Eddie Van Halen fan. I understand Eddie Van Halen fans, especially hardcore ones that are more so hardcore than me. I remember when that guitar came out, it was 25 grand retail. Street, you know, was all over the place. But 25 grand retail, I remember 25 grand for a guitar. Who buys this guitar? And I know who buys those guitars. The same people who would buy a $25,000 jersey from from a sports team and has it signed and framed, or bought it from a dealer. It's a piece of memorabilia. It's a piece of your childhood. It's a piece of the thing that you love. It's everything that you want. And if you have the money, I guess you spend it. And it's not even just about being rich. Look, let's face it. Some people will buy a $60,000 pickup truck, and some people will buy a $10,000 pickup truck and spend $50,000 on something that they just care about, maybe it has value, maybe it doesn't. So I like this subject because of the fact that it's like I said, it's a kind of a little polarizing. Like I said, there's people out there who are like, signature gear is for posers, and I don't get it. And that's every right, and they're not wrong. And some people are like more lean towards me, where I'm like, signature gear lets me, for a moment, stand in somebody else's shoes. And when I play my Nuno, or when I play my Eddie Van Halen, I do my best fake Eddie Van Halen licks and best Nuno licks and plug into an amp. And man, I don't know if I would play them in front of people all the time. That's not really the guitars I grab if I, go jam with people and stuff. But they are the guitars that give me like that moment. It's a moment for sure. ESL says the Bootsy bass. There are stuff like the Bootsy. He's talking about Bootsy Collins bass, the Star bass with the, I think it's 5 pickups in it, 4 outputs. I think it's like 4 output jacks, four pickups, 4 output jacks. That's a little crazy. You know what I mean? Some artists do have something that is so unique to them that you're just like, I don't know. Who's I'm a huge, massive fan is Billy Sheehan. Huge, massive fan. And I've never been able to pull the trigger on that bass because it's just a little too different for me. Because I realize, like, as much as I like it, as much as I can, I won't play it. I'll get it and it will become wall art. And that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something I actually want to use and play. Yeah, Lunamatic says some artists, and this is kind of what I'm talking about, some artists are more involved in designing the guitar than others. Just saying, absolutely, of course. And some are more excited about it, and some of them learn. Look, there's a reality to this. I don't know if you know this, but there's tons of artists who have made signature guitars, and they had a unique guitar. They made a signature guitar, and they were excited about it until one day they realized, like, the thing that they liked about that signature guitar was nobody had it but them, and now everyone has it. It's a weird feeling. Think about this. Some musicians by nature, and again, all levels, collectors to professionals, some musicians like having, when they enter a room with a ton of guitar players, having not the most expensive guitar. It's never about that. Well, it can be about that, but it's usually not about that. It's about having the most unique guitar. What do you have? Oh, I have this guitar. It's in a special color. It's just something unique. And they're like, oh, I've never seen that. And there's a feeling of like, oh, yeah, I have something that's, not everybody's seen. And then if you become famous and some company says, well, we'd like to recreate that for you. At first, your reaction is like, great, until you see it everywhere. So every room you go in, you're like, every guy and gal that comes up to you for, hey, can I get your autograph and a picture? And by the way, I have your guitar. I have the same thing you have. We all have the same thing. And so there's a little bit of that to that. Interesting subject. Like I said, I like these discussions because it's always like I said, every time it's come up on the podcast, it ends up being polarized in the comments because there's so many people have strong opinions about whether or not musicians do it to sell out, whether musicians do it for real. What I've always, one of the musicians I always want to talk about is I always mention Mick Mars from Motley Crue. He doesn't have a signature guitar, and he was in an interview once, and as far as I know, he doesn't have a signature guitar. I've never seen one, and he, in the interview I saw, which was many years ago, he said he just never wanted a signature guitar. He talked about not being good enough for one, which is, of course, silly because we know, one, he's a great guitar player. I think he's a great guitar player. But on top of that, I don't think how good you are really determines in this. I think, again, it's a signature instrument is really about how many people are interested in having what you have and would buy it. It's a consumer product. And obviously, Motley Crue has enough fan base that it would make sense. But I don't think that's exactly what it was. He said that's part of it, that he's just not good enough. But I think it's exactly that. I think he doesn't want to have everybody just have the same guitar as him with his name on it. So there you go. Okay. I'm looking at comments to see if anybody have any more input on this subject before I move on. Hoser says, do you have a personal price limit for guitar? Early, if you watch the podcast, like I said, 250, coming up 250 episodes, you'll see for a longest time I said I wouldn't spend more than $2,500. You have to understand, inflation has really messed it up. I don't mean in the last year inflation. Inflation over the last just 3 or 4 years. You all, I feel like the majority of the audiences out there, majority of the comments out there, seems like the inflation, it was like, it's obvious now. So everybody's like, this is crazy how much everything's went up. But I feel like inflation has been coming at us for the guitar community for 5 years. It's just been pounding on us ever since the market, ever since we recovered from the last recession. Those guitar companies, just came pounding as much as they can. And the reality is that, there is more to it than that. Like I've said, it's a little tricky, and I always hate talking about this and not explaining. And what I mean is, a lot of times, I've said this before, a lot of times I'll buy a guitar. I bought a Gibson R9 last year, as the guys talked about. If you saw my collection video, I talk about this. That guitar was, of course, very expensive. However, that guitar is a very strange guitar because obviously honest, but honest to goodness, I'm into that guitar for $1,925. That's the physical amount of dollars I spent on the guitar because of basically what happened is I bought a guitar for that price, and then that guitar, I ended up selling it for $6,000. And I have a policy. I just laugh. I have a policy. I don't have a policy. That's just dumb. I have a philosophy. And my wife and I have had this philosophy since we were broke 20-somethings in a one-bedroom apartment, broke as hell, okay? Which is when I sell gear, I take the money for gear and I put it into more gear. And the reason is because at some point in my life, poor 20s, we ended up pawning a bunch of my guitars, selling stuff, selling my gear to make rent, to make, to be honest, my wife back then, she smoked, right? My wife hasn't smoked in over almost 24 years now. She hasn't smoked, but back then she was a smoker, and we those of you who smoke know this. Even back then, it was crazy expensive, and especially when we used to we're talking about 1994, 95, we would have, after you pay the rent, we would have about $100 a week to live on, to pay for gas, which at that time, thank goodness, it was like $1.07 for a gallon of gas. But my truck and her car would suck up probably about $50 of gas for the week. And then so that left us $50 left over. I don't remember, I'm doing off memory. I think a carton of cigarettes back then was $15. Where we lived, you could drive to the reservation and get them without taxes, or we could go across into Nogales, into Mexico back then. And we would do this, so, just to save money and buy cigarettes across the border for her. And then, now you're down, you're doing the math. You're getting down really fast. You get down to like $35, and then you're like top ramen and stuff like that. And so what ended up happening was, like a lot of people in those situations, you'd sell a guitar, you'd pawn something, and then of course you can't pay it off, so you lost it. And then when you did the math, when you look back, what you end up getting for the gear back then, especially because there was no reverb, there was nowhere to sell this stuff. I don't want to get, that's just reality. You couldn't put, you could put an ad in the paper, but who had money for the ad? And your friends were broke because, your friends are usually in the same situation you are, so they're broke too. And looking back at that moment, what we realized was there was a lot of times, like, essentially I just sold a guitar, and then what did we get out of it? Some cigarettes, you know what I mean? There wasn't like anything. So that being said, we kind of followed that. And then what happened is over time, you do better and you do better and you get better jobs. Things, start going for you. Obviously, we opened businesses, and those have been successful. And so we kind of still stick to that philosophy. So I kind of try to keep my gear money churning into itself. But collecting, as long as I have, it kind of plumes up. You know what I mean? Is the term I use, so the reason long answer to answer your question, like what's my limit on what I spend on a guitar? My limit to spend on a guitar is probably at this point in my life, infinity. In other words, I don't know if there is a limit to what I would spend, as long as I felt like, again, I had, like one day, if I couldn't tell you this, but one day I could go, okay, screw it. Let's just sell 20 guitars and buy one super expensive guitars. I don't think I'll do it. My main reason for not buying super expensive guitars is a constant fear of, because like I said, again, I've been self-employed for 17 years and I love it. I've been my own boss. I don't have any companies to dictate to me. Like I've said to you guys before, 95% of my income comes from no companies every year. It comes from self-generated. I generate it through my businesses and through YouTube and through you guys and Patreon but everything. But that point being, the problem with being self-employed is it's always in the back of your head. One day you might have a bad month, a bad year. In fact, I was convinced it was going to happen in 2020 when COVID happened. I was ready. I was absolutely ready. In fact, I was convinced. I go, the channel will be interesting because I don't know how many guitars I'll have left at the end of the year making videos when I have to sell them all. So you're always just constantly aware of the fact you have to sell this stuff. The reason I tell you that is because that's my fear of expensive guitars. When you buy really expensive guitars, if you ever get in a way where you have to sell those, there's not a mass market for them. And if you have to sell a $4,000 guitar in a hurry, you are going to lose your ass. It's just going to be a horrific thing. So that fear keeps me from some of the more expensive guitars, unless I really, really love them. The other thing that happens on expensive guitars is all of my favorite guitars. In fact, if, I don't know, it changes obviously like a lot of you, what guitar you love the most. But if you were to say, what's your 5 favorite guitars at any given time, I can guarantee you, although the guitars change in my collection, there's probably not a single guitar in those 5 guitars I would pick in the last, going back 3 years to now, that are probably I paid more than maybe there's one that I paid $1,500 for. Most of them will be about $1,000 is what I paid for them. So when you find you have guitars that you love for sub $1,000, it's hard to justify $3,000 and $4,000 guitars. It just is. So that's my answer to that, which is a weird. So I'm not old. I'm vintage. Said he quit smoking 12 years ago. All my money spent on smokes went to guns and guitars. And it's I absolutely, if you can quit smoking, it's the greatest thing. I've never smoked. I lucked out. Everybody in my family smokes, but me. Everybody. And growing up, in fact, I think I'm the only family member I know in any form that isn't a smoker. I think, there might be one exception. And I'll tell you, it's a funny story. I've always been a chubby guy, even when I was in the Army, right? I just always been a chubby guy. And Dennis Leary had a joke that he goes, fat smokers, and I don't mean to offend anybody, I'm just telling you the joke and how it affected me. He said a joke and he said he was talking about fat people smoking, And he goes, does that mean they have something in their mouth 24 hours a day? That seemed to hit me pretty hard. I heard that probably when I was 17, and I was like, oh man, I can't smoke. I go, and I convinced myself the only way I could smoke is if I lost weight, and I was thin, and I was afraid that I would go, what if I smoke and I don't get thin? I'll be like that Dennis Leary thing. So again, that was what kind of did it for me. That's what killed smoking for me. So I never tried it, never did it. Very interesting subject to go on a guitar channel. So, okay. By the way, I'd like to also point out too, same thing with amplifiers. I've been collecting up some really interesting amplifiers over the last couple of years because, again, very interested. And like I said, a lot of this is because of inflation. I know that this stuff's just going to keep going up in price. So it's more of not that I want to buy it to make money on it. I just want to buy it when it's, look, it's not affordable now. It's going to be less affordable. You know, it's going to get worse. And the problem I have is one of my favorite amps is my $65 Reverb, which is in, 60% of my videos. I paid $350 for that amp. I absolutely love it. James Norton said, Trogley's doing all right in the expensive guitar department. I'm sure he is. Again, here's the, and I don't know though, because remember, I owned a store for 13 years. So it's really tricky because I owned all those guitars, obviously, as a store owner, but when you're in the flipping guitar game, owning is a very weird word. I mean, obviously, like I said, if I still was doing the store, especially now with the channel, like I said, it would be more of like an Anderton's vibe thing. I'd be doing that kind of vibe. But more importantly, you know, at any given time, like right now, if somebody said, what's the most expensive guitar you have? I could tell you what is in my personal collection, but in the store days, I could go, oh, $15,000 because we had some private stock PRSs in the back. You know what I mean? And so, and they were ours. They were mine. I mean, I was the main owner and we bought them. So, I mean, they were mine, but that was a different mentality because kind of like Trogley, you're flipping guitars. So every guitar is really just a flip. I know he keeps some, I'm sure he does, because just like at the store, I kept some too. But I owned way more guitars when I had the store, but I have more guitars now because I'm not flipping guitars. The only time I sell guitars now is because of physical room. I've said this before. I just physically just run out of room. I'm not ever going to buy a bigger house just to put more guitars in it. I tell my wife that all the time. It's just crazy to me. So, okay, hold on a second. I'm just looking at comments. But like I said, and that's my experience with most guitar guys that flip guitars. They're going to have a lot of expensive guitars because they're flipping them. You got to understand there's a big motivation to have expensive guitars when you're in the guitar business because not only because there's always somebody that's willing to buy one, especially if you're sitting on it and waiting for the right time, but more importantly, big expensive guitars bring in really cool guitars. You know, if you have a $20,000 guitar that's interesting, there's a huge 50% of the time, that seems fair to say, 50% of the time how that guitar gets sold is somebody will go, I'll give you $5,000 and these 3 or 4 guitars. And now you have 3 or 4 interesting, expensive guitars to sell. So big guitars bring in small guitars. And that mathematically works at every level. So whether it's a $500 guitar brings in $100 guitars, $5,000 guitar brings, $3,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 guitars plus some cash. So that's another reason why you see a lot of guitar flipping done. And again, I know Trogley pretty well, and I've seen some of his videos. I'm not 100% versed in how it all works with him, so I'm not versed. But that's the general idea I got, was that he's buying and selling guitars, right? Which is very common in this industry. I just decided to open a store. You can make more money doing what he's doing, buying and flipping guitars. There are tons of people. I know personally good friends of mine. I know 10 people right now that literally that's what they do all day. They travel every day going to music stores and pawn shops looking for guitars, running Craigslist ads. They buy and flip guitars. That's how they do it. It's financially great, but again, I wasn't looking for that when I opened my store. I physically wanted to have a community, a store. But that expense of that store makes it a little different financial proposition. Okay. Okay, let's grab some more questions. I was scanning And I'm just going to refresh and see where we're at. All right, let's do this. We have Vimps 69 says, I have a late meeting this afternoon. We'll have to catch the replay later. Hope everyone has a fun show today. That's nice that he did that. I feel for you, man. I was meetings all week. I had to pay the price of being down when I was sick. I just so happened in January, I thought I had this great idea. I pushed every company to the last week of the month going, I'm just going to stay focused on working and getting stuff done and let all those meetings and Zoom calls and all this stuff to stack up for the last week. And then I got sick. So I had to reschedule it all this month. It's just been paying the price. I don't mind the meetings. I mean, it's talking about guitars and stuff. It's as a gig goes, it's a great gig to have. But sometimes when there's a lot of them, it's a little daunting if there's a lot. So I appreciate Vims, where you're at. Stout Coffee says, what are some Frankenstrats you've had the pleasure to work with? Were they any good? That's good. Okay. So there's multiple questions. So like, what is the most interesting Frankenstrat, parts of caster, whatever you want to call it? Were they any good? Also, does a Frankenstrat say anything about the owner? Sure. All these questions are great questions and great answers. I can actually tell you exactly to the T the most interesting this is a Franken-Telly that I ever worked on. And I can tell you I'll tell you his first name because I don't know to tell you his last name. I didn't get his permission. His name's David. David was a customer of my shop for many, many years. David now goes I've seen him recently, I think in the last couple months at Zim's Guitars, because Zim's is like I've talked about this before. Zim's was a customer of my store, and then he opened a store. Dave, he always brought me interesting things to work on. But one day he brought me the coolest thing to this day I've ever worked on. It's like a parts of caster thing. What he did I thought was just super ingenious was he was going to yard sales. And at a yard sale, he found an old, I don't know if it was from the 70s or the 50s, but it was an old end table, right? Okay, and some of you guys may remember what we're talking about here. There was some of these old end tables, and they were like 3-inch blocks of mahogany. And I don't mean like pieces or ply or veneer. I mean, this was just a hunk of mahogany. The table was big enough to where you could almost, unfortunately you couldn't, but almost do 2 full bodies. You couldn't. But it was 3 inches thick of old mahogany that also had been sitting on somebody's house and drying out for 30 to 40 years, right? And what he did that was ingenious was he bought this. I can't remember the price. It was something stupid, right? He made it pay $25 for this table, right? Somebody was just looking at it as like outdated furniture. This is back in like 2007. So when I did this, 2008. I think it was 2008 when I did this for him. And so what he did is then he took it into his garage and he rough cut out a telly shape. So he planed it down because obviously 3 inches is pretty thick. So he got down in it and he brought it to me and he just said, hey, put it on the counter and says, hey, can you make a guitar out of this? And I said, yes. And so I got a neck and we put a neck on it and, I cleaned up the route, you know what I mean? Smoothed it all out, finished it, the sides and stuff. And then I routed the pickup holes in the neck pocket and all that stuff. And we'll put it together. And, what ended up happening was great. Something else is when planing down the body, we found wormholes in it. That you couldn't see from the top, which actually were really cool because it's just these random holes that went in and came out the side and stuff. And that guitar sounded so damn good. It just sounded good. It just had a vibe to it. It was not a heavy guitar. You kind of picture it being heavy, but it wasn't because this is old. It's probably Honduran mahogany. Like I said, it was made when it was just like people just bought wood and just made stuff out of wood and didn't worry. The biggest expense was the labor, not the actual materials. And unlike today, where it's almost it kind of flips a little bit. And but what I loved was that was kind of my first before reclaimed, especially in the guitar community, was a thing. He just did this, and it was great. That was the coolest parts of caster I ever did. To the point, reason I think about it, one, it was cool and it had a cool story. he ended up not keeping that guitar. What he does is he did exactly what he did there. He kept doing that over and over again. He'd always have a project. He'd always have a new guitar, something different, something to work with. And I always thought to myself, I should have bought that damn guitar because it was just like that story I just told you. I always thought that was a cool story. This used to be a reclaimed end table. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure it was a 70s table. And it was just, like I said, this thick block. And because it had that, it's not only thick, but it had that, how they kind of, I don't know what you call it, where they kind of carved like the waving on the sides and stuff. So it looked wavy on the sides. But that was cool. That was probably the coolest thing. And sadly enough, as you guys know, as shortly thereafter, the time where that kind of furniture was made, everything essentially became IKEA before IKEA. So now it's hard to do that. You know what I mean? First of all, older furniture tends to have more value now. And I don't know, maybe because again, I'm not versed in this. Maybe we were dumb. Maybe he was dumb and I was dumb. Maybe what we did is we took a very expensive table and turned it into a guitar. But either way, I think he paid $25 for that table. So the investment to do it was cool and the guitar came out great. That was probably my favorite. And that was my favorite, and that was my favorite story. And then it was funny, like I said, just a couple months ago, within the last month or two, I popped in his guitar, and he just happened to be there, and I said hi to him, and I said, "Do you remember that guitar?" And then we talked about it just briefly because I told him, I still think about that guitar to this day, how cool that was that you did that. Huff Daddy 75. Because there was 74 other Huff Daddies, says, "Happy Friday, Phil. I have a Vela solid body, and it's my favorite guitar, especially the bridge pickup. Just sharing." Okay. Just wants everybody to know that. He says, I made my first repair today, cleaned up the switch contacts, and it worked. What's funny is both the Velas that I got had 3-way switches cleaned with contact cleaner. They were fine after that, but it was kind of funny that they both had that. So I love my Vela. I did the video comparing the two Velas. I'm not keeping the solid body, and I've talked about this before. It's kind of funny. The solid body plays better. I don't know why. It just rings out. Sometimes guitars just ring out. It rings out a little better, but there's just something about the Vela that's behind me, the white one, the cream, the semi-hollow. What I ended up doing was I restring it. I did a setup on it. I've been A-Bing them left and right. Been A-Bing them back and forth, and I've got the white one. I feel 85% sound and playability to the solid body one, and I feel like it's really great. It's a really good guitar. And I'm happy with it, so I'm going to keep this semi-hollow and the solid body is going to go. I thought about keeping both Velas, but I just know, what's going to happen. I'll end up playing the solid body all the time because it plays just a little bit better. And then the semi-hollow won't get played, and then I'll sell the semi-hollow because it's not getting played. And I picked the wrong one. And I really, like I said, especially now that I put that tortoiseshell that we picked out on one of the shows on it. So I'm glad you like your Vela. I like my Vela. My Vela is my favorite PRS. It slowly beat out my Mira. It beat out everything. In fact, all of my PRSs, I can tell you right now, I've always loved my Mira, but my Mira has been in a gig bag for, I don't know, a long time. I don't think I've pulled it out so far this year because ever since I got the Vela, I love the Vela, and I like my PRS SE 22. Those are the two I play all the time. I love them. I just bonded with them for some reason. I have no idea how to say this name. I'm going to say, well, the last name is Pei, so I'm going to say Pei. It says, "Hey, Phil, what is the best way to locate and mark where to drill on the body wood mount Tele neck pickup?" Okay, for precision fit with the vintage style pick guard. Okay, so what he's talking about, or what they're talking about, is on Tele guitars, on Telecaster guitars, there are two ways to mount the pickup. Essentially, the Tele style pickup, the chrome covered pickup. Some, mostly newer style ones, they mount like a traditional pickup, single coil wood, to the pick guard. Unfortunately, the vintage style ones, older ones, mount, there is no screws. A lot of times you don't even notice it. If you look at a vintage reissue Telecaster, you'll look and there's the neck pickup, but then there's no screws. There's no way to raise and lower. You actually have to take the pickguard off and raise and lower the screws as they're in the body, and then they're usually either surgical tubing or springs underneath it, compression, and that's how you adjust it. And the problem is, even if you want to make that one a pickup mounted pickup, sometimes they've drilled the hole too big, and so your traditional screws don't fit, and you have to put nuts behind them. You have to go to Ace Hardware. So to answer your question, here's the trick I use, but I don't know if it's going to be easy for you, but I do swear by it because I've been using it for years. I get that request. I've gotten that request more times than I can ever remember, where somebody says, hey, I want this pickup installed, and the pickup is a vintage style Telecaster pickup, and it has to go underneath the pick guard. No, the screws have to go in the body. What I use is I have a pick guard that has the 2 screws in it. So in other words, the pick guard's got a route for the single coil pickup and the 2 holes, and I just lay that over it, center it up, put a couple screws in it so hold it in place, and then I use my drill, go there, and I have a depth. I set the depth on it. Which is very straightforward. If you don't have, if you've never done it before, what I would do is go very shallow and then just kind of work it out. You know what I mean? It's a little tricky thing. Off here, I don't have any measurements. I just kind of generally know the depth. I don't have any like jigs for the depth or anything. You just generally know how far you want to go down. You can tell from the screws. You know what I mean? You can kind of do the math real fast. Like, okay, maybe you're talking about a 1/4 inch. You drill a 1/4 inch in each side, something like that. And I could be wrong. That could be too deep, but I think that's maybe 1/8 inch. You know what I mean? 1/8 inch and maybe, to a 1/4 inch. If you don't have a pick guard with those 2 holes and you can't borrow one, what you can do is, what can you do? You can, see, it kind of stinks because you can put the pickup in the pick guard, but as you lower it in, you gotta get those 2 marks. I would really see if you could just find a pick guard with the 2 holes in it. It's really straightforward and easy if you can. And you can usually find one. And something I suggest is if you have a local repair shop or a store and you deal with, you can maybe borrow one from them. Like I said, there's a ton of ways to get one. That's the best way because they'll line up perfectly and they'll go right in there, and it takes seconds to do it that way. Don just wanted to super chat to support the channel. I appreciate that, Don. Matthew says, if you have a Les Paul, you have a signature guitar. Yeah, of course. Yes, of course. There's an argument to that. I think when I did the 5 things about the Les Paul, there's a reasoning why it's not a signature guitar, and then some people argue it's a signature guitar. I hate those kind of arguments, by the way. Not because they're unwinnable, because I always just don't care. I don't care. You know what I mean? I don't like semantics. I don't like the whole, well, technically, it's never been this, because, I've said this before. Growing up, I grew up by an Air Force base, and I remember growing up, they would always use terms like the C-5 Galaxy is the largest cargo plane in the free world. And then one day you're like, wait a minute. You open up your book of airplanes, and there's a Russian cargo plane. It's bigger. And you're like, wait, I thought the C-5 was the biggest. And they go, well, it's in the free world. See, the Russian one's not in the free world. And I'm like, screw you. Like, what's wrong with just saying the C-5 Galaxy is the 2nd largest cargo plane in the world? You know what I mean? I get it. There's some kind of weird pride thing attached to it, but your pride is obviously diminished with the technicality of the crazy loophole you're trying to do. So again, I don't like semantics that way. So yes, Matthew, I agree with you. To me, the Les Paul is a signature guitar. Although technically I've read so many things that I forget why. And somebody's going to put it in the comments, like, it's not a signature guitar because technically whatever the hell the reasoning was. Like I said, I have a video where I explain it, but it's because I read it and I explained it. But deep down I'm like, I didn't care. I don't care if it's a signature guitar or not. To me, it's just like, yeah, I don't, like I said, I wouldn't care if all my guitars are signature guitars. Who gives a crap? What a weird thing to give a crap about. Again, I get the poser jokes, but like I think Jeff said earlier, we're all posers. That's kind of how I feel, right? Very few people are actually trendsetters and cool. Very few. Most people think they are. They're not. I'm definitely not a trendsetter. I'm definitely not cool. With my cool dad hat and black T-shirt, and my cool... Like, right, I just got, so it again, if it makes you happy, damn, it makes you happy. Okay, so we have Brosiv. I think it's Brosiv. Am I reading that right? Brosiv says, hey, Phil, I read on the Ernie Ball forums, never go to forums, just kidding, that the Music Man that Music Man is longer making the JP6. Why do you think they stopped building it? So no longer making the JP6. I don't know if they're no longer making the JP6. I'm just going to, obviously you got that off a forum. Who knows if it's accurate. But what I can tell you is I'm not versed in the John Petrucci guitars as much as, the people who really get into them. But I mean, aren't they up to 12 now? Aren't the JP 13 or something? So I would imagine eventually. I think the way I kind of recall this all goes down is they make the John Petrucci models, the JP6 and the JP whatever, and then there's a JP10. I don't even know if those numbers are sequential. If there's, because there's so many models. When I was interviewing him, I had tons of notes, and even I couldn't keep track. And there's a part of the interview that I removed because it was just me and him. There's like 15 minutes of just me and John Petrucci kind of shooting the shit, so to speak, going back and forth on some stuff that didn't matter. And maybe I gave it to the patrons, I can't remember, but it was this. And I was like, how do you keep track of this stuff? And he was like, oh, it's easy, because of course he's creating it. But I was like, yeah, I can't make heads or tails of this all the time. You have to really pay attention. So I would say if they stop making it, it was probably because it's not selling that much, or they have something else coming. Or again, what I remember about the Petrucci guitars is specifically, especially the JP stuff, is that they kind of like iPhones, they kind of come out with new ones, but then every once in a while there's like one that does really well, so it sticks. So even though they've like made 3 or 4 versions past it, they're still making that one. Maybe time's just gone out for that. Again, I don't know. My only thing I could tell you is this: based on my experience with guitars, if they stop making any kind of guitar model that's been successful in any way, it's probably going to hold value or go up in price. So if you want one, you want to buy one before that happens. That's not as an investment. Don't be that. Don't do it, because I can't guarantee you get investment. It's not about being an investor. It's about, do I want to pay somebody used on reverb more than they were going for new today? That's really what it comes down to. You might as well get yourself a used one or a new one now before that whatever story breaks. Unfortunately, I have no connections at Music Man. I've never worked with the Music Man guys in any way, so I couldn't confirm or deny that for you. I usually, if it's something that a company I've worked with, sometimes I have a text. I can text somebody and say, hey, I heard this, and they'll confirm it because they know we have the show. There's just Ernie Ball's just a company. I work with the Sterling guys, but Sterling guys are Praxis. That's a different company than Ernie Ball. So if you ask me a Sterling question, I can reach out to Praxis, but Ernie Ball, I don't have anybody to talk to there. The Juggernaut V2, this is version 2. Hey, Phil, any rumors of Lettieri SE model? No rumors, and I'm just pulling this from my gut, what I think. I would imagine no Lettieri model SE coming. Look, I think I'm okay. I'm cleared now to talk about some of this stuff. As you guys know, I was one of the first channels, the first wave of channels to get the SE, obviously, because my video came out I put it out like an hour after John Mayer's video came out. So obviously I had one, and we've talked about it for weeks and weeks before they released. I had one. So they sent me one early. So obviously, I was a little privy to some information. One of the things that was kind of explained to me, again, through communication, not as like it was something to put out there on the internet, but I don't think it matters now, which is, my understanding is months, if not half a year, they spent months building SEs before the announcement. So those SE Silver Skies that they had that ran out, and I guess I've heard now they're sold out till May. As a whole, you know what I mean? I've heard different stories. I think Sweetwater's saying May. Somebody told me a dealer said next year, because again, it depends on how many the dealer ordered and what they're getting allocation for them. But my point of this is what probably feels like what we've seen over and over again the last 2 years, where a company announces a new product and doesn't have it. That's not what I got from the SE. Okay. What I can tell you, because I put affiliate links on my SE video to Sweetwater, so I saw how many you guys bought. It felt like, and again, I didn't sell them all out at Sweetwater, but I feel like, based on what I saw numbers wise, my guess is Sweetwater probably had 100 deep of each color. That's probably what they had stock of, and then they ran out. So 400 SEs, Silver Skies. I could be wrong. Could be 500 each. Could be 50 each. But that's my guess. 100 each, something like that. And some dealers got 1 of each. Some dealers got 2 of each, right? Some dealers ordered 10 of each, but only got sent 2 or 1 or 2 of each. So my point is that this. I would imagine not a lot of SE guitars are coming out before the summer or until the summer or after summer, because I'm sure it's, again, to do that, to release another product run, they would have to allocate time in the factory. And I'm sure all that court time right now is going to those SEs, Silver Skies. So that would be my guess. And I bet you let's just call it an educated guess. And I think it's pretty accurate. I would be shocked. And of course, tomorrow they'll just, to prove me wrong, they're like, Lettieri SE comes out tomorrow. But like I said, I would be shocked to see any SEs, especially anything that's going to compete with the John Mayer Silver Sky. I think a Lettieri SE is probably definitely a 2023, 2024 product for sure. And that's even if the market continues to slow. The market's been slowing continuously, is what I've seen. And again, I've said this before, and over and over again, the market slowing isn't a sign of anything negative yet, because we were doing 125 miles an hour in a 75 zone. I think we're doing probably 100 miles an hour now in a 75 zone. Maybe we're down to 90, 95 miles an hour. But either way, we're speeding. So that means there's still people buying guitars like crazy, but not anything close to what they were doing just a year ago today. A year ago today, which was already down from a year ago before that. We are not where we were a year ago. They're not buying the guitars. You can see it. You can see it by inventory increasing here and there. You can see it by the used market's definitely increased. If you look on Reverb, the used market on Reverb, the guitars are there's way more. A year ago today, if you wanted a Tremonti PT, is that right? MT15 amp, there was one used one and no used ones. And now there's, I don't know, last I looked, there was 20 you could probably buy. So, I mean, again, we're seeing it more and more as inventory comes back in stock and demand kind of slows. Everything's kind of leveling out a little bit on our side. I'll continue to watch it and we'll talk about it on the show because, again, Grumpy Mike Guitar said, what does he want to know? He wants to say, do you have any Sharpen My Axe projects coming? Cheers. I do have some Sharpen My Axe projects coming. Keep in mind, like I said, I've kind of morphed a little bit of the Sharpen My Axe vibe into all the review videos. That was kind of what ended up happening because it just seemed to make sense. The idea with Sharpen My Axe, to me, that is different than the normal tutorial style video of like, this is how you add a bridge or this is how you install tuning keys, was Sharpen My Axe was always like, it was like an entertainment video that just had information in it. One of the complaints about Sharpen My Axe that I've gotten over the years is exactly that. People are like, I remember you did this, but now I can't find it because there's no, like, if you type in on YouTube, Phil McKnight, this repair, nothing comes up because it's in a 30-minute Sharpen My Axe videos where I did all this stuff, and it's just not accessible for search. And so I go, okay, what we'll do is we'll just constantly bring it up on when there's opportunities on the review videos. So that's why review videos, if there's an opportunity to show you something, I show you. And then specifically, we have Sharpen My Axe videos as we go, but Sharpen My Axe videos have been, like everything, plagued with parts issues. You know what I mean? I've been plagued with parts issues. Think about this. I have a Sharpen My Axe video. This is not, I wish this was made up because it would just, I don't know. It's going to sound horrible. I have a Sharpen My Axe guitar that I've had now for over a year because the pickups are still on back order. I ordered the pickups and I've been waiting a year for these pickups. And we thought about changing it. Like, why don't we do something else? But the whole point of this video is these pickups. This theme that we can't execute on. So I don't know. In fact, I do have I don't know why I'm telling you this because it's not going to mean anything to you guys. I have a Sharpen My Axe, like one or two guitars that I'm Sharpen My Axe that I'm finishing up right now. There'll be no videos. I just did it. It's like kind of like I just did it for somebody and maybe I might have some footage and discussion of it and then throw it out there on maybe on the second channel. We'll see. But yeah, we'll see. Brandon says, hey, Phil, I love the show. I'm going digital. All right. He goes, and I wanted to know your thoughts on the Line 6 Go Pro Pod Go. Excuse me. And the Head Rush 112 200 watt amp. I think, he's talking about the FR powered speaker. Thanks for everything you do. Sure. Essentially what you're doing is, in my opinion, if you get the Pod Go and you run it through an FR, you're going to have something that's technically close to some kind of digital modeled amp. Essentially, that's what you're creating. You have a digital brain, which is your Podgo, and then you have some kind of Class D power amp section, which is 200 watts, and through some kind of FR, which is some kind of flat response speaker, which is kind of what I find is in a lot of the digital combo amps is some kind of speaker that's not flat response, but again, it's not designed to add to the tones. It's trying to replicate the tones that are in the amp. What I like about this is this idea that you're doing is it's essentially not super expensive to do it this way, and it's like a semi-custom. You get the vibe of being like a semi-custom amplifier doing this way. Sure. I like the idea also because one of the things I like to do with these powered speakers and my digital products like the HX Stomp or Kempers or whatever, is I like to integrate analog stuff with them. There's something really cool about that. I've had lots of fun with that. When you integrate like an analog preamp and then you put digital effects and digital IRs with it and stuff, it's really cool. You get like something fun. Again, like I said, it's not about, is that as good as a tube amp? I'm like, it's not about that for me. I want to be inspired, and sometimes trying something like that inspires you with different sounds and different ideas. So I like your idea. Sounds fun. Bill's question is, any idea for beer episodes? Yes. Hold on. He says, viewers drinking game is you take a sip when Phil makes a analogy or says my screen jumped. Fun for the great show. Oh, there's a ton of things you could, if you could make a drinking game out of the show, I'm sure. The beer episodes, like I said, the plan was to do one at the end of every month, and of course then I got sick, and now I'm trying to make up that one, but again, it won't be this week. It'll be the first week I feel 100%. You know what I mean? And like I said, we'll do it. I already have a cool, one of you guys sent me Rush, the beer from the band Rush. Somebody else sent me some other beer too, but I don't know what it is. I put it in the fridge and I haven't looked at it because again, it's all just sitting in the fridge. I have the Iron Man beer. I'm going to be doing somebody suggested the I think it's 19 Murders wine by Snoop Dogg, and then which is a rosé, and then Maynard from Tool has a winery here in Arizona, and I got one of his bottles of his wine, and so the idea would be to do one episode a month or so of kind of like, hey, I'll drink this thing and we can talk about it while we're doing this podcast because it seemed to have fun. But like I said, once I'm back 100%. Miguel says, hey Phil, I just got. What he just got? He just got a Hagstrom, okay, Phantomin, custom, and I need some tips polishing the stainless steel frets. Do you use the same items you would with nickel? Yes. Look, for stainless steel frets, you don't need anything special. You could still just use everything that you use for nickel is what you use. I don't use any special tools for stainless steel, and my friends that build custom guitars and are also working factories doing stainless steel are using the same stuff I'm using, according to when I talk to them. Because you're just, anytime you do something, you kind of talk to people who do what you do too, and vice versa. So no, I don't think you need anything special. It's the only thing I'll tell you is this. One thing I want to be aware of. See, stainless steel is a tricky thing because stainless steel doesn't mean everything right there. There's different grades of stainless steel, but also sometimes, again, when you talk about polishing it, that's fine. But if it's cruddy, one of the things I will tell you is I had an issue with a guitar company about a year or two ago because they sent a guitar that said it had stainless steel frets, but it was all cruddy. And we went through it and what we figured out was it wasn't stainless steel frets. The company didn't know this. We went back and forth on it, and then that one kind of backfired on me. What happened was they said, well, I think we sent you the wrong one, and I gave them the benefit of the doubt. We sent it back, and then they never sent a replacement, and then they never responded to emails. So I'm like, okay, well, if I would have known that's how it went down, I would have just done the video and kind of let people know. But to this day, I don't know, because again, during COVID, I don't know what the hell happened with them. But back to your thing is, if you're polishing them to polish them, yeah, use whatever you got. If they're polishing because they're cruddy, you might want to take a look at that because again, stainless steel shouldn't get cruddy like nickel does. There shouldn't be corrosion on it, in my experience. Voodoo Fist says, hey Phil, any upcoming guitar amp pedal videos that you are working on that you can tell us about? Sure. I absolutely can. I don't know why you'd want to know, because the downfall of knowing is, I'm pulling up the screen, sorry, is that I can't tell you because I don't know, because it depends on how fast I get certain ones done and which ones edit. And but what I can tell you what's coming, I just can't tell you when it's coming. So I have a video with the 304 guitars. You guys, if you guys saw, Daryl Braun did a video for these guys. They're in Canada. They make guitars with a solid stainless steel fretboard and frets. Very cool. I'm doing a comparison video. That video will probably be in a week. I have a Glary versus Donner video that I'll be releasing, comparing essentially. And the reason I'm doing that is because Glary and Donner, of course, are hitting everybody the hardest with advertising. If you guys go out there, you know, you just constantly see those guys, and they're making expensive guitars. And I thought it'd be a cool video to compare like the $75 Glary to the $200 Donner to see, like, is there a value in that? It's just more fun. And actually it was for my curiosity more than anything else. I have a Firefly acoustic. I've done 2 videos for Firefly. It's a tough thing to do because it's an inexpensive guitar, and sometimes people complain in the comments, but yet it gets the highest amount of views anytime you do inexpensive guitars. And it's an acoustic. This one I think is $150 acoustic or something. Very inexpensive. So I thought that would be a cool thing to talk about, especially for guitar players, electric players that are looking for more of affordable acoustics. I have the PRS Custom 2408 S2 video. Some of you guys may have seen that guitar hanging in a thing in the background. That's coming up. Taurus pedals that are made in Poland. I have a video of 2 of their pedals coming. Those I have not filmed yet. One is a cool thing that you'll see that I really dig, especially if you're into single coils and you love single coils and hate single. I think it's like the perfect pedal if you love and hate single coils at the same time, which is kind of sometimes my relationship with single coils. And then, of course, their new pedal amp, or a pedal amp thing. I'm doing the Tone King amp Imperial 2 review, which is a head and cabinet, because I got one, and so I want to share with you guys and my thoughts on it, especially since they're so expensive, and a lot of you, are asking about it. And I have a vintage tone pedal video coming. I have this. I'm just looking at a list. I have a list of all this stuff. Some of the stuff I'm looking at says edit, needs to edit. I have notes on my little to-do sheets. Needs to edit, needs to film, needs to work out. Sometimes I have to work out what the hell I'm going to do. Daddario sent pedal board videos. I think if you go to Ola's channel, Ola England, you can see that video if you're curious, because I think they told me and a ton of channels not to release those videos until March, but then I saw Ola's came out, but I'm still going to adhere to what they asked because they don't have product. So, I mean, if I put it out, you don't have anything until March. I have a Valiant bass video, including soon, but not super soon. I don't have an ETA on this, but we will be doing a limited edition Valiant bass for the channel. And this is the teaser of it, of course. What I can tell you is behind me is one of the prototypes. And so you do with it what you want. It's a bass, but it's a 27-inch scale bass. And the idea is we're trying to build a fun, limited run of cool bass, cool color, obtainable, right? Notice I didn't say affordable, okay? Obtainable. Obtainable meaning, not $2,000. You know what I mean? It's not going to be crazy. It's just not going to be that crazy expensive. It's just not going to be cheap. But what's cool about it is it's the idea is to build a bass that feels exactly like a guitar but sounds like a bass. So for those of you that want to record at home and always wanted a nice high-end quality instrument bass, this is it. What else? New PRS acoustic amp, new PRS acoustic with new effect pickup in it. I haven't looked at it. I have it downstairs because the week I got sick, I was supposed to do a podcast with somebody from Fishman and somebody from PRS to talk about these new pickups. And of course, I was sick, so we had to cancel the podcast. So we'll be doing a bonus podcast with them talking about it. What else do I see here? I see 2 Sire guitar videos. Those will be coming out soon too. So more Sire guitar videos. Very cool. Those I'm just giving you the review videos because that's what you asked about. So, and a custom pedal board video. So, and that's just the name. I could keep going. That's how many. That's why a lot of you guys. I saw some of the comments earlier. A lot of you guys reach out and you're like, I really appreciate you guys. You're like, hey, if you ever need this, I'll loan you this guitar. I'll loan you that. My problem is, I'll tell you guys now. I think I've been very clear about this, especially over the last year or two. My workload is far surpassed what I can physically do. I'm constantly trying not to overextend myself. Which is very tough. This week alone, I probably said no to 4 companies. Physically, I just can't do it. I just can't. I can't make the content. There's just, and it's not, and a lot of you guys, thank you. A lot of you guys offer like, hey, if you need editing help, if you need help, that's not the problem. The problem is burnout. I like being excited about the guitars. I like being excited about doing videos. I do not want to make 5 videos a day and parse them out every day. Because I've tried it a couple of times. I've tried to do more videos. And when I increase my workload of videos, what I find is I burn out, and then the videos are just like mechanical to me. It's just I'm not enjoying it. And if I don't enjoy it, like they say, if you're not enjoying it, you need to stop. So Amanda says, I'm just exhausted just hearing about it. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a lot of stuff. And there's more stuff because, again, like I said, when I said I had a ton of Zoom calls, meetings this week, all those meetings were for new. Those are everything I told you guys is either something I filmed or I have to edit, or it's physically here. But I have tons of stuff that is coming. So he says, you need an apprentice. Like I said, I'm happy. Like I said, I'd like to increase the workload a little bit. I slowed down a little bit because of, being sick. The cold kind of wipes me out, each day. But there you go. Let's get back to what you guys want to talk about. Okay. Don's question. He wants to know if I've used and pushed the Line 6 Spider V amps using a Spider remote apps on a phone, tablet, or computer. No, you know what? I haven't. And I can tell you, I made this resolution in 2021 and I lied to myself. My resolution in 2021 was I was never going to do any more app videos. And I wasn't going to talk about any products that have apps. I'm actually so pissed about apps. I had to buy well, I didn't have to. My son got a electric toothbrush, and the new ones. I don't know if you've seen the new ones. They're weird, man. If you haven't done it, the old ones, he's like, right. The new ones are like a bee. Like they're intense and they really clean your teeth. So I was so excited, and so I go, okay, I gotta buy an electric toothbrush. Right? He was telling me why it's cool, and I was like, all right, cool. And like half the electric toothbrushes now have an app on your phone, and I was like, I'm not buying a damn toothbrush with an app. I just can't do it. My grill, I bought a Weber grill, and it has an app. And I was like, this is stupid. I'll tell you the temperature in the house. And I'm sure some of you guys love it. I'm sick of apps. I'm done. I'm just burnt out. I don't want any apps. I figure the only app I need in my life right now for me personally is like the Uber app maybe. And I don't know, maybe that's it. So to answer your question, Dawn, it's going to be really tough for me to get an app video on the channel right now. Because, again, I'm just really not, one of the problems I have being on this platform, YouTube/podcast, is that people assume that because I do this, I must be into social media. I cannot physically make myself, as hard as I try. I've said this before. I said this is, and you guys even called me out on it, which is hilarious. I said, if you see me post on Instagram, it's because I'm bored to death. And I posted something on Instagram and everybody's like, oh, you must be bored today. And I was like, yeah, I shouldn't have said that to you guys because now you guys know that I'm bored. What I mean, bored is not the right word. I have to force myself on those platforms. I have to force myself on Facebook. I just don't like my phone. I've just never been a phone person. Like, I don't like being on my phone. I like making videos on YouTube and talking every week on this podcast YouTube platform and interacting. I like doing that, but I do not like social media. And what I mean by that is I don't mean I don't like watching it, because I don't like putting it on it. So again, that's where the problem with apps. Everything that brings me to my phone is, I find my phone is where all my stress in my life comes from. Because to me, like I said, I'm a small businessman, which means phone calls and texts and emails are work. That's 90% of the stuff that is coming in is work. The more I'm on my phone, the more I'm working. Phone is work to me. So I try not to be on the phone for personal time, because personal time immediately turns into work time. I feel like I'm complaining. I don't mean to be complaining. I'm very lucky to do what I do for a living and last this long on all the ways I've done it. So that's my long answer to say I'm not going to do anything with an app. And in fact, I had a company reach out today. They want to tell me about a new exciting product. I'm actually excited about hearing about it. There's an NDA, but I got a feeling it's gonna be an app. So if it's an app, I'm not gonna do it. Because my 2022 resolution is no apps on the channel. Ross said, thoughts on the Gibson SG versus SG Standard 61 versus Epiphone 61. What are my thoughts? I like all SGs. Absolutely. I own 3 SGs. I love them all. The SG is my favorite guitar. Favorite guitar in the way it plays, the way it sounds. I love it. I absolutely love it. I have an SG with 2 P90s in it. It's in my bedroom. I literally play it every night. That's the guitar I play. I plug that right into my Princeton, and I play for about 20, 30 minutes before I go to bed. Very rarely do I have a pedal or anything. It's just that amp clean with that SG. I got nothing to say about SGs. And so, everybody who has anything negative to say about SGs, I agree with every negative thing about the SG 100%. They're top heavy. They're ugly. Everything you're going to say, I agree with you. I just love the way they sound, and I love the way they feel. So there you go. Okay. Yeah, Jazz Flounder says, too much social media lately. I'm making an effort to cut back. You know what it is for me? I don't mind social media in the way that, and again, I don't want to be on this box, soapbox, but I just want to be clear so there's no confusion. I'm not really upset, or I don't really disinterested in like what people post or, all the things that people talk about. I'm really disinterested in the algorithms that suggest this stuff to me, because I find it's just not what I'm interested in. So, and I find I'm my worst enemy on those platforms. When somebody will put something stupid, I'll click on it because I'm curious and dumb. And then because I clicked on it, the algorithm just punishes me for the next 2 days with more stupid stuff. No matter how much I say, don't suggest this. So, G-Wayne, that's my way I'm reading that, says, can you recommend 10-foot cables to run from Radial AB box to amps? Looking for best bang for the buck. Enjoy your content. Some of my favorite guitar cables for the price. And again, let me look right now before I speak. Because one of the problems now with all the inflation and the changes in the market is is that sometimes the thing that you rely on a year ago is not the thing you should be suggesting, because it's the opposite. I'm going to look right now. Yes. So there is probably a better cable and a better deal out there, but I will show you. I'm going to show you right now. This is one of my favorite cables for the price. This is the D'Addario PW stand for Planet Waves. They used to be called Planet Waves. Now they're D'Addario. I think D'Addario has effectively pushed out Planet Waves as a brand name. This is a 10-foot. It's called the 10-foot American Stage cable. These are made in New York. These are actually made in New York cables. Now they got the gold tip end, all the things. But here's what $32.99. They're way more expensive than they used to be. You used to be able to pick these up for $25. $32 is a lot of money, but it's not insane. I think and for you others that are looking, I think like most cables, as you go up in size, it doesn't let you see. How weird. They're probably out of stock. Usually as you go up in size, oh yeah. See, if you go up in size, it doesn't go up a huge amount. Like it went up for 5 more feet, you went up, $7 more. But these cables are really good. Here's why I recommend them. Okay. This is the important part of the recommendation. They have never sent me any of those free cables for free. I have not bought a single D'Addario cable. I haven't bought a D'Addario cable since, and this is going to be a guess, but I'll promise I'll get you in the right ballpark. 2014. That's probably the most recent I could have ever bought a D'Addario cable. Maybe 2015. But so the reason I'm telling you that is all my D'Addario cables are fantastic. Good cables, quality put together, you know what I mean? Good. You could probably get a deal if you go out there and look. I don't know if I just go to Sweetwater because I knew they had it in stock. But that's the cable I recommend. I like Megami cables. I like Klotz cables. There's a ton of cables I like. I like the Paul Reed Smith cables. There's a lot of cables I like, especially the ones with the red Switchcraft breakers on them, or Neutrik, I think, breakers, where I love those. But to me, if you're looking for a quality cable, here's the thing I'm going to tell you. And again, things can change, and the information I could give to you is dated, okay? But I'm going to tell you something that I like about D'Addario cables. The quality is very good, okay? Like I said, the price is, I want to say reasonable. I don't know, you know what I mean? If $33 is still a lot of money. But what I will tell you is, when you buy this cable, you do not have to keep the package. Cut the barcode out, okay, of the packaging. I mean, if you want to keep the package, do that. Cut the barcode out. I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to look to make sure that they haven't changed anything. It says, let's see, made in the USA, quick tips. You have to look, because again, companies can change specifications, but they were guaranteed for life. What sucks is some of you, so I'm trying to look, and it usually will be on the packaging, but you keep the barcode. So if you ever have a problem with the cable, which fixing a cable, you don't need a warranty work, by the way, but you can just do it yourself. But it's nice to know that if you contact D'Addario and say, hey, I have one of these cables and it's bad. I've never had that problem, by the way, ever. But if you did, they would replace this cable. They'll ask you for the barcode and the information, and it's lifetime. So I don't think you have to have a receipt even, because it's lifetime on the cable. Now, what I don't see is on the Sweetwater page where it says that. So again, some of you might want to go and find physically a picture of the packaging to see if that hasn't been changed. You know, like I said, that's part of the problem. Things changed. I don't know. I can tell you this: the ones I bought say it on the packaging, and I would hold them to it. And I've had enough experience with that company that they would I know they would take care of me. You know what I mean? I've had so many great experiences with them as a customer. I don't have any problems. So that's a cable I would recommend. It's good quality. I like them. So that's and if you guys have great suggestions too, put those out there too. Like I said, Hosa, some of you guys are saying Hosa, Ernie Ball. Sure, there's great, like I said, I can't say that these cables are better than anything else. I'm just telling you, I've had them now for, 10 years, some of them for longer than 10 years. And I've said this before, I am not nice to cables. I don't baby cables. I don't do anything you're supposed to. I've just, I'm abusive. I loan them out to people, throw them in the back of my truck. I just don't care. Okay. So, next, what do we got? Next subject, next question. Let's see what we got. We got something. I'm sure we do. We have Rose. No, don't listen to me. Let's go back. We have, again, I don't want to butcher your first name, but the last name's Pei. Says, hey, Phil, thanks for answering my question. I am a mechanical engineer, and I own a CNC and a mechanical machine shop for work. Awesome. Making a guitar is a side hobby. My name is, okay, so he's giving me the thing. It's, I'm going to say Yang Chao. I'm going to say that's right. He gave me the phonetics, and I'm probably still messing up. Yang Chao. But very cool. That's very cool that you have a machine shop. Look, if you have a machine shop, oh man, that's the thing that's dying in this world. Like I said, especially in the guitar communities. You know how many guitar factories don't have a machine shop anymore? I mean, like most of them don't have anything. They're just buying all the parts now. Drew says, hey, Phil, I had a Line 6 Pod Go fail to load mid-set at a gig. Heartbreaking, found out it's a known flaw. This information seems suppressed by the big guitar YouTube channels. Okay, let me keep going. Could you offer any thoughts? And I have no experience with that product in detail to tell you for sure. I haven't had that experience. However, I'm not shocked to hear that experience. My experience with those products, everything from TC Electronics to Nux to Line 6, is that essentially those products, in my experience, those digital products, what it's happening is that they load in the information, and to us, those products are, even though we're calling them digital, to us in our brains, we're almost like they're analog. It's a pedal with knobs, and it's not. It's essentially a computer. And so I've seen Line 6 products for sure. I've seen Line 6. I've seen, like I said, TC Electronic products. These are personal experiences. Nux or Nux, whatever you want to call it, Nux products. I'm trying to think who else. Those are three. There's probably another one too, where physically they've done exactly that. They glitch out. They do something weird. Most of the time, you have to plug them into your computer and re-image them. And sometimes you get to save all your presets, and sometimes they want you to go back to factory presets. So Drew, it doesn't shock me to hear this at all from Line 6. I mean, keep in mind, you know, these products are not far removed from inexpensive blenders, inexpensive remote controls and calculators. I mean, essentially, it's just a company making a product that does a job as cheap as they can physically make this thing, so they can sell it as cheap as they physically can. What I will tell you is that although I have a trust in solid state amplifiers, which I do, I just very rarely in my life had a solid state product go crazy on me or south and shut down. What I can tell you is digital products to me are like tube amps to me, in the idea that if it really matters, in other words, if you don't want to be standing on stage looking at either 13,000 people or 13 people while your crap's gone south on you, I would have a backup. That's you know, especially that stuff. That's the downfall of that stuff, is that, you know, if you're going to buy an inexpensive digital product, you need to be prepared to have a backup because of that exact thing. Think about this. A surge in power could make them just error out and do crazy things. And again, this isn't what is it? I'm not making excuses for these companies. I'm explaining that's the downfall of that stuff. So yeah, I'm not shocked by your comment. And then your second part was like YouTube channels are suppressing it. I don't know, because I don't know what channels you're talking about and what they're saying. I don't know what channels. I mean, again, not every channel's different, but channels make money and do things different ways. And some channels literally live on, and a lot of them are up front to tell you they live on company, you know, sponsorship. You know, every video's got to be sponsored by a company, which makes total sense to me. I mean, it does. I've talked about this before. I'll tell you guys this over and over again. Just if I think I did, I don't even want to think. I want to tell you for sure, so I'm not guessing. To give you a reference, when a company sends me a product to do a video, I mean, even if that video, I had one recently just happen, and that's why it's a good reference, to give you a reference of what it takes. Okay, so Sweetwater sent out the IK multimedia pedals to me, and I did a video February 2nd. That video has 10,380 views, okay? Then I did another video that was, I would say, independent. In other words, I paid for the product. I didn't have any company interaction. That video has same week, 80,254 views. So I got 70,000 more views. When you do the math, the video that got 80,000 views, I made 10% of what I made just having Sweetwater sponsor a video. So it was a huge successful difference. Well, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe it was more like it was double, right? So in other words, the Sweetwater, because Sweetwater sent out the product having value, maybe it was double what the 80,000 view did. That's why I pepper that stuff in. You know what I mean? Try to like keep it going with like, here's an independent video. Like I just did the Dean Zelinsky guitar that's got 55,000 views. You got to understand, there's no way mathematically that's ever going to work ever. And nor did I think it was, and nor did I worry about it, but I just want to reference to that and explain the logic of my decisions in my channel. Okay. I'm going to go to it. Let's pull the analytics. So that video has 55,000 views. It pulled in $225.97 because ad rates are up. Interaction was high. In other words, it's not how many views you get. It's how much people, you guys really watched a lot of that video. $225, which is really good for that many views for my channel. But the guitar cost me $1,400. So technically I'm still in the hole $1,150, right? Not complaining, just explaining that, you know, every channel has a different mathematic of doing this. So I kind of, like I said, pepper that stuff in. So to answer your question, yes, if there's a channel that's specifically saying like, yes, Line 6 is supporting us and they're sponsoring us, they might be dissuading from talking about the negative. Not my experience. Most channels, even that get sponsors, try to be as open about stuff. They just disclose that, hey man, I'm working with these companies, so I got to tell you that. I have no company that is that I work with that has any financial effect. I could stop working with all companies tomorrow, and it would change nothing in my bottom line for the year. Like, it's just looking at last year's numbers, company interactions, products, all that stuff. It didn't even equate to 4% of my total revenue for the year. So again, and I do that strategically. I try to work with companies because that gives me more access to more gear for more videos. But I also don't want them to be. I don't want them to be my boss, because, like I said, if you want to be my boss, I want medical and dental and a 401k, whatever that is. I want one of those. Some of you guys know what that is. So Rock Daddy says, are you selling the Zelinsky? Yes, the Zelinsky will sell, of course. Anytime I do a video where I bought the guitar, 90% of the time you'll see me flip it for some percentage of what I can get for it to move on. And the way I do that is, I've said that very clearly. I'm not looking to make money on it. Usually I sell at a loss. Like I said, you guys know I paid $1,400 for the guitar. And then the case is an additional $140. I'm hoping to get about $1,200 for the guitar and case, you know, and stuff. 12, meaning somebody give me 12 for it, and then I'll net maybe 11 out of that. And that's fine. As you guys saw, I got $225. And if you factor in, I think, another month of the video, I think I'll break even on that. But we got a video on the channel. You guys seem to like it. It got me some subscribers, which got me some new interest. Patrons supported it. And like I said, salt and pepper that stuff in. And then in a couple more videos, I'll have another Sweetwater video or something like that. It's just how you got to do it. It's I'm not old. Jermaine Vintage says, my 401k lost 12% last month. Yeah, I understand. ESL says Phil's 401k is a Gibson. Well, I have an IRA. I mean, I have that. I'm just saying, like, 401ks are like, I used to be, you know, had a corporate job many decades ago. No, a long time ago. And I remember, like, the 401k, and they match stuff. And now all those days are gone. And I would never go back. Okay, so let's do this. What are we going to talk about now? Hector wants to know if there's any update. We talked last week about doing a practice amp video. No update, because I've just now been collecting the information. I copy paste you guys' comments into a sheet that I have here, a copy paste sheet. I post everything over for suggestions. And a lot of you guys said Yamaha, a lot of you guys stuff. I'm probably going to pick 3 amps and do a shootout. A lot of channels done that, of course, but one of the things I know is, just like me, just like you guys, sometimes because you've seen 2 or 3 other channels do it doesn't mean you don't want to see another one from another channel. You may have a different perspective. So I plan to do that. I'm really curious too. Plus, I'm kind of in the market. I kind of want a new practice amp. Like I said, I like my Spark, but, you know, maybe there's something out there better, you know. I'd really like to find something that doesn't have a damn amp. Alan says, where will you sell the Zelinsky? It's on Reverb right now. I'm pretty sure it's on Reverb right now. If not, it can be. I don't know if there's a link to the Reverb store, my Reverb store, but if there's not, I'll make sure when I'm doing the timestamps, I'll put the link right now. Let's see. And a lot of you, by the way, sometimes you guys just send me an email saying, hey, I like that video you did. Are you going to sell that? A lot of times I don't. You know what I mean? I don't sell the gear because maybe I'm attached to it. Or like I said, sometimes the company sent it out and I was like, oh, I kind of dig it. And it was something I negotiate up front. A lot of times when a company sends something out, I'm really curious about it. You know what I mean? So I'll have a discussion with the company like, hey, if I like it, I'd like to keep it. And in that agreement, I don't sell it because of that. That was part of the agreement. I'm selling the Shiji Gold Telly. I think that's on Reverb right now. And a perfect example, if you watch that video, you know exactly why, because I thought the cheaper one was better. But obviously I'm selling the gold one for the price of the cheaper one. So I think for the same price, the gold one's better, but I like the blue one, and I'm going to keep that one. Okay. Some of you guys' questions. Luke says, I'm going to answer this question just for the funniness of it. Luke wants to know if I would play bass for Steel Panther if they asked. Luke, first, it's not about how well or not well I play bass. It's, man, would I have to diet to get into some spandex? It would be a horrible. That's, first of all, I think I've lost about 16 or 17 pounds, maybe a little bit more, and because I'm ditching the COVID weight and the COVID, being the last 2 years, and sitting around the house and donuts and beer and being locked in from the world. But geez, you know how far you have to go to get into spandex. That's the thing. I just would never want to wear spandex. So no. Yeah, somebody says if I take the gig with Steel Panther, I'll need a wig, a fan, and a pink vanity mirror. No, I need a wig, a serious diet of insanity. I'd never be able to eat a carb again. Ever. So here you go. I don't know. Somebody was saying I should take a look at the Vox. Vox, yep, and the GT. Got all the suggestions. Like I said, keep suggesting the practice amps you guys want to see, but I've got most of them now, and like I said, I'll probably pick the 3 most requested or the most interesting and just compare those. Unfreakin says that he checked and it doesn't look like it's posted on Reverb. Hold on a second. Since we're right here right now, what I can do is... Nope. There. Do that. Edit. Hold on a second. All things are fixed. Cool. The Dean Zelinsky guitar, so you know, is really cool. As you guys know, you guys talked about, how cool it would be, and I talked about buying one, and it's really cool. I really liked it way more than I ever anticipated. My anticipation was I would go, I actually dug it, but here's the problem for me with guitars. First of all, like I said, I buy the guitar for the video, and then I made the video, so now it's got to go. But the trick is, and I've said this many times over, if a guitar, like the Valiant guitar is a perfect example. The Valiant guitar was sent to me. The fact that it was sent to me versus I bought it is irrelevant to me. What's relevant to me is no guitar that comes to me that I keep, I don't increase the size of my collection. I just can't. Like I said, physical room. So to keep the Valiant guitar, some other guitar has to go. And so the Dean Zelinsky guitar is not about whether I like it or not. It's about, am I willing to let go of a guitar right now to keep it? And I'm just not right now because I really like the guitars I have. So, all right. I watched Stuff 6 says the V-neck was a deal breaker for me. I thought for sure, I don't think I've ever played a V-neck I like. That is the only V-neck I've ever played that I liked it. and again, I'm not saying loved, not saying anything else. I'm just saying, I think I said it in the video, and I think I said it correctly, which is the V-neck on that guitar makes so much sense for what it is. Again, it's a goofy, crazy neck. And I stand by everything I said in that video. That video, the original version was 27 minutes long that the patrons got. You guys got a version of 19 minutes. I had to take 8 minutes out, but I'm telling you, in the 8 minutes, a lot of it was redundant, and some of it didn't make sense to the overall point, which was, if you're looking for something like that, if this is always not why you would be looking for that, I don't know. But if you are, it's really cool. But again, if you're not looking for that, it's not going to convince you to like it. Casey Lee says, is it my reverb? I'm sorry, go ahead. Is my reverb page listed on it? I think the reverb page is called KYG Shop, because I try to be open about this. I do have a private reverb shop, and then I have the KYG shop. What I can tell you is the private one, I haven't used it in over a year. If I use the private one, which doesn't, it's private. It just, I'm usually sending it to somebody direct. I try to like I said, I named it KYG Shop so you guys would know it was me. And in there, it talks about like, it's what video it was used in, all that stuff. I want to be very upfront with why I have it. You know what I mean? What I'm doing with it, why I'm getting rid of it. Again, it's important to me to be upfront with everything I can. So, okay, we have some more questions. This question's from Eddie. This is a great question, and it's going to actually connect to something. So he says, "Rest in peace, Lefty Affinity Strat, and possibly Telly. Classic vibe now is $460 plus gig bag plus tax, $550 before amp and other essentials. That's a huge entry level cost for a kid, beginner. I'm so sad." Now, that is his statement. It's what he put on the comments early on the show. I earmarked it, but I really like this question statement thing, because the question is, are affordable guitars gone? Is this inflation? Are the companies pricing entry level players out of the market? And I have not a theory. I have a opinion. So I'm going to give you my opinion. So you guys can churn it in your head and maybe get your brains, going. Maybe get your juices flowing and think of things. So I really honestly, and I have believed this for many, many years, again, before the guitar boom, everything I'm going to tell you now is a thought I had pre-guitar boom. So it has nothing to do with the inflation in the market. I have believed for over a decade now that Epiphone and Squier and brands like them, sub-brands of brands, have been on a mission to become a brand. I believe that Squier's mission has not been, for at least, and again, I feel safe, the decade, but I could say almost 2 decades, but I'm going to say a decade to be safe. For the last 10 years, there's nothing that I've seen that makes me believe that a sub-brand of any company, whether that's LTD, whether that's Epiphone, whether that's Squier, whether that's PRS SE, those sub-brands of premium brands are trying to create another brand. The term being sub-brand, but it's just another brand, right? The reason is this. I'm trying to think of, like, a good example is, and again, I've said this many times, I'm not a car guy, so if I get this wrong with the car stuff, it's just kind of how I remember stuff. I think I remember, like, Plymouth was more of an affordable car company. Maybe I'm wrong, right? Because they got rid of Plymouth. And if I'm wrong about the company, you can insert whatever. You know where I'm going with this. Like, there are car brands that created, like, there's GMC and then Chevy's under GMC, right? Like, if you buy a GMC truck, I understand it's spec differently, just like the guitars are spec differently, but a GMC truck is more premium than the Chevy truck, right? That is the branding of that, it's how it's done, but it's also the branding. Chevy is not the It's not like I don't believe GMC was like, we're gonna make Chevy the cheap, affordable truck, our cars and trucks. That's the brand, and then there's a premium. So we see it as PRS and then PRS SE. Gibson, then Epiphone, Fender, then Squier. But I don't think they've, for over a decade, seen it that way. I don't think they see, like, this is our cheap brand. I think they think this is our brand and this is our premium brand. See? Because we want it to be, there's Fender is the brand and then Custom Shop is the premium. But that's not the premium. That's like the, I don't say ultra premium. And now I feel like I'm talking about toilet paper. It's ultra ply premium. No, seriously, like, private stock for PRS, Custom Shop for Gibson, that's not premium. The premium brand is the core brand, and then the brand is the sub-brand in that logic. The reason I say that is everything they've done, all those companies have done, kind of tells that story. Again, what they say and what their actions are different things. They have been systematically creating, whether the inflation has done a little of this damage or not, which it has. Some of it's not inflation. You can see the strategy in putting a Squier, slotting it right into the Made in Mexico pricing, and put the Made in Mexico pricing right into the premium pricing. And SEs are great, but SEs like Schecter stuff, you're almost on $1,000. Like I said earlier, like, think about how I said it earlier. I go, oh, some of my favorite PRSs is my Vela, and then this SE, almost like I'm trying to be like every average Joe going, yeah, I like an SE. See, I'm not a pretentious, snooty guitar player, but that's $1,000 guitar, basically. That SE, I think it's like $800. And this started this question. I'm sorry, what was the viewer's name? I apologize. Eddie. Like Eddie started this question, this idea. You know, here we are talking about a sub-brand or affordable type product. We're talking about a guitar that's almost $1,000. That's expensive, even with inflation. That's an expensive instrument. SE is not a sub-brand. It's just another brand. So I feel like they're trying to branch out like family trees of brands. The reason I'm telling you this is that, and then our brains, because we look at Squier as a sub-brand, we think of Epiphone is like, oh, that's the sub-brand. That's the affordable version. Then as it prices out of its market, out of the entry-level market, we're like, what are they doing? Not realizing that the entry-level market is exactly that. Off-brands. My first guitar, I could not afford a Squier. I had a JB player. My JB player was a Strat copy. It was used even. You know, I grew up, like I said, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona. Couldn't say my family was poor by any means. We lived in a decent middle-class house, right? We had, we were fine, I guess. But like I said, there were some tough times, but tough times for us wasn't like, no food. Tough times for us was like, we didn't have cable for like, we were just talking, my wife and I were talking about this. In my household, like you'd come home and there's just no cable for like 3-4 months because my parents couldn't afford cable. You know what I mean? Cable TV, which was a luxury, right? So again, not a hard story to tell people. It's just, that's just what it was. Like sometimes we had luxuries, and like I told you about guitar lessons. Sometimes I had guitar lessons when my family could afford it, and then sometimes I go to my lesson, my mom was like, "No money this week, so no lesson." You know what I mean? That being said, when I tried to buy my first guitar, a Squier, like walking in the store, my mom would look at a Squier and she's like, "I'm not paying." I think then it was like $160. She's like, "I'm not paying $160 for a guitar. I got my JB player for $100 even." She was like, "What do you have for $100?" And I'm convinced, I think they wanted to pay $50. I think my parents were convinced they could buy a guitar $50 then. And they walked in the store, and then I think the cheapest guitars were the used JB players and other things like that. So my point to this is that exactly that. I don't look at it like Squier is like Eddie's talking about. He's like, hey, beginner players aren't going to be able to afford a Squier. I think that's been the agenda beyond inflation. Inflation just happens to add to this fire, which is Squier has already been on a mission, just like Epiphone, just like SE, all the sub brands. They've been against like guitars, like what's cable TV? Exactly. Well, in my world, just it's your age is your thing, right? In my world, cable was everything to me because I watched MTV. I'm an MTV generation person, so to me, I'd only watch MTV, and then MTV when my parents couldn't afford MTV, it was like, what am I going to watch? Nothing. Murder She Wrote reruns. So and so I thought what would be fun about this is like as I've been talking, I pulled this up a little earlier. I'm going to share it with you. This is Sweetwater. What I did is I went to Sweetwater, typed in guitar 6-string, and typed in price range $100 to $200. I wanted to see, what $200. And again, everybody's going to have different opinions, but my opinion is $200. I don't know why I'm having trouble. Oh, because I want to go back to me and I'm clicking all the wrong things. And I'll go back to the Sweetwater thing in a second. My opinion is $200 is the entry-level price point for guitar. Sure, could you buy a $100 guitar today? Absolutely. Look, there are guitar stores where I live where they have a row of 50 guitars deep that are $100 less, used guitars, all kinds of stuff. Used, Sawtooths and Harley Benton's and, Aria Pros and all kinds of stuff. You can find affordable guitars. But we're talking about new guitars. A lot of new players, especially kids with their parents, are going to buy new guitars. That's just how they buy things because they're not really savvy to our world that they can really score a great deal on a used guitar. So the question is, what is an entry-level price, relatively entry-level price guitar? I think the price is $200. I base that off the fact that if you look at the age of the kid that's going to start playing guitar, most of those kids are now walking around with an $800 phone, right? Sometimes it's a hand-me-down phone. The parent upgrades their phone and hands it down. But either way, you're walking around with an $800 piece of technology reference-wise, you have to put it in play. Plus, also, sometimes as guitar players, as musicians, we lose some of you guys don't have kids, and you don't understand how the kids thing works. One of the nicest financial things your kid could do to you is take up guitar. You should see what it's like when your kid takes up soccer or football or baseball or ballet or gymnastics, how fast those fees and those costs can make guitar seem like a joke and cost-wise. So guitar still is relatively, I don't want to say inexpensive, but obtainable. So going back to it, I want to look at this. We're looking at guitars that are $200, and it looks like you have the minis. We'll take that out of the equation. I'm shocked, like all of you. This Squier Mini was $99 for probably 15 years straight. So the fact that it doubled in the last couple of years is crazy to me. And then, of course, the Bullet being $200. But here's what I mean. Here's what I want to get to with this. This Mini, when we would sell the Minis, we would talk to the Fender guys, and the Fender guys would tell us that the Minis they lost money on because it didn't save them any money. They said, look, same amount of pickups, same bridge, same tuning keys. The fact that the body's just an inch smaller around and the neck is 2 inches shorter, they go, we really don't save a whole lot of time, especially in labor and cost on this guitar. So I'm not shocked that they found a way to get it right up there with the full size. So you have a Squier Bullet at $200. You have the Ibanez Geo at $200, and I would say the Bullet was probably $129 forever, and then it went to $159. So $200. The Bullet can be a pretty decent instrument. Now we have the Squier Mini Jazzmaster. Again, I want to stay away from the minis. A Geo, again, $199. Again, if you're savvy, you know, like we all know, you can find this Geo used all day long for $100 and something somewhere in a store. This Jackson Dinky is a pretty decent guitar. I played a bunch of these at $200. So, I mean, and these are brand names. Again, we know that if you're, because we're all guitar players here, we're all into it, that if you had a friend that wanted to get a guitar and they asked you, you wouldn't send them to buy most time you wouldn't send them to buy those guitars. You could go, oh no, you go to Tolman.com and get a Harley Benton for $169.99. It's great. Or, to send them to get, some of the off-brand guitars. Hell, you could get a $75 Glary and put, if you know what you're doing, put some time into it for your friend and give them a guitar. Of course, those guitars get a little dodgy if you don't have somebody who can do the work. So I think there's still obtainable guitars. I just think, like I said, you have to think of entry-level guitars as being outside the brand names. And like, here's a good example right here. I mean, again, it's an 80s throwback. Will a kid want this? I don't know, but this seems pretty reasonable to me. $179 in today's market for this Kramer Beretta, right? Tremolo bridge, we know they don't, they're a new player. They don't put that in. Make sure the screws are back. One pickup. I'm a strong believer that when you start playing guitar, if you're trying to be economical when you're starting to play guitar, then one pickup guitars are great. No switches, you don't know what to do with those anyways. No switches, no tones, just, play the guitar. Here's another one. Look, right next to it, this Jackson Dinky JS11. Let's see if it's even in stock though, because that's half the problem. So yeah, there's none on order, but this seems really reasonable. $159 for a Jackson. I mean, a lot of us would kill for this. I've played a ton of this exact model. I've had my hands on them. Little fret sprout here and there, and you could see, like, looking at this right here with the nut and stuff. I mean, little glue marks everywhere. I mean, it's got everything you can imagine on a guitar at this price point. I mean, I could just physically see it, and this is their photo they prefer to show us. Look at all that slapped on glue. And pickup frames warped on the bridge. Again, the point is that this is still fine, though. I would highly recommend this for $160. Again, I know it's tax, but there's no shipping. And then you got to understand, like, there is some good news, and this is kind of back to Eddie's thing. He was saying, well, yeah, but guitar and amp, but we know now. Hold on, let me go back. We know now. You don't need that stuff. First of all, if your kid has any kind of smartphone, you can get a tuner app for free, as I just told you earlier. Oh, well, I said I don't like apps, and I said I only have a few. One of the apps I have is exactly that, the Boss tuner app. I absolutely love this app. this is great. I mean, there's a ton of free tuner apps. Some of you guys have preference, but you know, the Boss Tuner app for free. It's absolutely great. Your kid has a tuner app. You can buy, you know, you can go on Amazon and find a clip-on tuner for $5 that works better than the pitch pipes a lot of us grew up with. So that's an easy thing to obtain. A lot of times those guitars, that Jackson will come with one of those crappy little cables. That'll last you a few months before it starts crapping out. So now you got to buy a little amplifier. And I've done reviews of the Blackstock Fly amp, the $59 for that little practice amp. And I used to tell parents all the time, you know, and they say, what amp should I get my kid? And I go, it depends who you love more. Do you love yourself or you love the kid? And they go, I love the kid. And I go, I'd get that amp. And they go, okay, what if I love myself? And I go, I'd get that amp. And I always pointed to the smaller amp. I'm like, I'd get the kid a small amp and some headphones if you love yourself. But if you, because it's not going to sound good for a long time. So I think there is still in this inflation, in this craziness, still options. Cause like I said, that's flat out just brand names at Sweetwater. And I wouldn't necessarily find that, I wouldn't say to you guys, as you guys know, that's the best deal out there. And so one of the question was, I'm just curious what you guys think. If you're interested, would you be interested in me doing a video of one of these guitars? Should I buy a sub $200 guitar off one of these websites and do a review of it to give you so we can actually get a reference of it? And if so, if you could suggest which one, and please just try to use like Guitar Center, Sweetwater, you know, Samash, whatever, AMS, whatever your preference is, go there, hit the under $200. I'm looking for $199 below. I don't want to spend more than $200. This would be literally just to do a video going, you know, is a affordable guitar out there, even though we know that if you go non-brand name, there's tons of them. I know I've reviewed them. So yeah, interesting question. So to answer Eddie's question, which is, or his statement, I understand his emotional reaction, which is the classic vibe, you know, is basically $550 by the time you add it all up, you know. But the sad thing is the classic vibe is a great guitar, and $500 is, unfortunately, with inflation, probably the right price on the guitar. I mean, again, maybe, I guess if I want to be critical, I think things would be like $400, $399. I don't think we're ready for this price point, but there are still, seems like there's still solutions with brand names, affordable pricing. And again, those are brand names, not even talking about, you know, as we know, there's tons of sub brands out there. You get Firefly to Ert to Ivy to Donner to Harley Benton. I mean, just great guitars for the price that you can pick up for a beginner. Sean Brooks says we should need to up the price affordable $400. That's kind of part of this. You have to, you know, look, none of us want to spend more money. Who the hell wants to spend more money? No one wants to pay more taxes, spend more money. Nobody wants that stuff. But realistically, the market seems still pretty effective at getting affordable price product to the masses. It's not like it's over yet. It's just, again, do you get the best? No. Do you get exactly what you want? No. But I can tell you right now, I told you I paid like $100 for my used JB player when I was a kid. You know, with inflation, I would have taken that Jackson Dinky for $169. That's you'd have to Google what inflation is, right? You know, from the year. I think I bought that guitar. I want to say it was like 1989. I think that's when I started playing guitar. So 1989, do $100 inflation 1989, and if somebody can have it, you'll Google it. Tell me what the number is. I bet you $170 for that Jackson is about $100. It might even be worse than that. I'm just saying I feel pretty safe at that, considering when I bought my JB player, gas was probably 98 cents a gallon, and now it's $3.50. Again, if you live in California, I'm sorry, it's $3.50 here. But so I think there's still obtainable products at every price point. So Sean says, hey, Phil, minimum wage here. We don't want to get too much in this, but I'm just highlighting. It says minimum wage here is $11 an hour. My 14-year-old son has a job at Walmart. He brings home $200 every week. Sean, I don't know where you live, but like to give you a reference, this is the only reason I'm going to tell you is because I know a lot of us live in different places in the world. I want to give you a reference. where I live in Arizona and Phoenix, they're starting most of the kids, my kids that work and stuff, and all my friends' kids. Everybody's making about $17 an hour. Now, before you go, what? Because some of you are going to have a reaction to that. Keep in mind, you can't get hours. You know what I mean? They can't get, they're not going to get crap tons of hours. But yeah, most companies here, most In-N-Out Burger, I think, is starting at $15 to $17 an hour. A lot of them just because they can't get labor. They can't get workers. So yeah. If you have a part-time job, you could buy that Jackson pretty fast if you're making that kind of cashola. Trevor says, okay, so he's saying with inflation, a lot of you guys are saying the same thing, $225, $230 with inflation. So $100 when I bought my guitar. So yeah, so think about this. I honestly believe that Jackson Dinky is a better guitar than my JB Player. Especially, I would have loved it back then if that existed. My JB Player was not made in the USA, not made in Japan. I think my JB Player was made, it might have been made in Korea, but it could have been made in China. I don't know, even back then. Because again, so yeah. If you guys don't know what Loog guitars are, let me show you real quick. So a Loog guitar is essentially exactly what he's saying. Let me just go to an image just to make life easy. Let me click on it right there. Okay, let me share it with you. There's the web. So this is a Loog guitar. I was right. It's a 3-string guitar. It has 1 pickup. It's small, kind of like it vibes to me like a ukulele, kind of like a guitar. They have lesson courses on it. I have not tried it. I've never tried those instruments, so I don't know. Again, with no reference of it, I can't recommend it because I have no reference of it. I physically saw them once at a NAMM show, and then I didn't stop at the booth. What I can tell you is what I've always liked for kids, travel is I like ukuleles, however you want to say it. I love ukuleles. I highly recommend them for people when people ask me like, hey, my kid, is he too young? Are she too young to play guitar? And I'm like, how old are they? And they're like, oh, they're 5. I'm like, I would put them on ukulele. With kids, piano is a fantastic foundation, so don't ever forget piano. But if you want a stringed instrument, because again, let's say you're a player, you're a parent and you're playing guitar. One of the great things about ukuleles is they're tuned to open G. So think about this: the kid can strum. You can strum. They can just work on rhythm patterns, just strumming this G, and you can play music with them. So for instance, you on your guitar, you don't even have to think about it. You could capo your guitar, which is great. So think about this. You could take your guitar and capo it and essentially play exactly. You guys will be in the same key and you play along with each other and you can play everything the same thing. Chords are slightly different, but not really. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit different fingering positions. And of course, I have a Gretsch. My second video I think I ever did on YouTube was my ultimate travel guitar, I think is what I call it, or something like my favorite thing. And it's my 6-string ukulele, which is, I think also tuned in G, to G. So again, really cool. So I think on that guitar, I'm doing off memory. It's been a while. That guitar's been in the closet for me since pre-COVID. I think you can capo like the 3rd fret on your guitar, and then I can play that 6-string uke, and we're in the same key and we're just jamming, having fun. So I'm sure the Loogs are just like that. Sorry, Meester, I haven't tried one, so I don't know. I would assume it's in the same realm. RNA Music says ukuleles are great for young beginners. Absolutely. Like I said, it's before I would try to make a kid play because here's where it gets a little tricky. I'm not a big fan of half-size acoustics. So when somebody comes in and says, hey, or somebody says, hey, I want to teach, a child to play guitar, should they get a 3/4 size? If they're 3/4 size, which you can size them very easily for guitar, 3/4 size, I'm like, yes. Once they go, okay, half-size acoustic, I'm like, most half-size acoustics are just garbage. You know what I mean? They don't intonate well. They play horrible. Some of them are junk. And especially what I remind, and this is like a reminder for you guys, the only thing I really highly recommend is, please, for God's sake, don't buy those Walmart, Target, department store junk 3/4 half size acoustic electric guitars that you see. Don't buy that stuff. It's it's $79 and it's always packaged well. Trust me, you can walk into a legitimate music store, walk up and for $79 buy yourself a legitimate ukulele, and they can play that. And the difference is, and this is what I've said, especially that's the main thing to take away here. When you're buying guitars that are sub $100, you're always looking at entry level. I don't want to call them junk. That doesn't seem very fair, but you understand, entry level, low quality instruments by any means. Sometimes we just call them guitar shaped objects. If you have the opportunity to put a kid in a position of a really sub $100 junky guitar for their first guitar, and they're small. Again, we're going off age, and for the same price, you can buy a legitimate ukulele. Buy that, because here's why: when they grow to the guitar, they buy their first guitar, the ukulele's still around. There's no reason to ever get rid of it. They can go to college and take that uke with them. So that's my advice, like I said. And for those of you, just the last little suggestion for those of you that do take this advice and get a young one a ukulele, the coolest thing you can do to share music with them is Google the Beatles on ukulele. There's tons of videos and transcriptions with amazing Beatles songs that some are actually, played on the ukulele on the albums, and some is just some of it converted to ukulele. And literally you can play guitar. And what I've learned is it's like a universal language of the Beatles is the universal language. You give a 5-year-old a ukulele and some Beatles tune, they gravitate towards it. It's just a music that they just get. You know what I mean? For all the reasons we know why. So definitely, like I said, think about that before you go down the thing. And to Meester's credit, if you come across a Loog, check it out. Like I said, I'm sorry, unfortunately, I've never checked one out. I'm sure it's the same principle and might be able to do the same things. So that's something to consider too. Do some research, watch some videos. All right. Caleb says he likes the guitar-shaped object. Yes. All right. On that note, I want to thank you guys, of course, for hanging out another Friday with us on the podcast. Don't forget, if you want to make suggestions on the small amp shootout that I'm going to do, what you'd like to see. Also, let me know if you're interested in me doing a sub $200 purchase guitar, whether it's brand name, off brand name, what have you, you know what I mean, to see if they're any good. I'm really curious. A lot of you guys asked me about the $500 guitar. What guitar would I buy for $500 at Sam Ash? And I did that video, I think in 2017, and with inflation, the video just seems out of touch. And believe it or not, I was presented with an opportunity. I hopefully within the next couple months, I have an opportunity to redo that video. So not do another. I know some of you guys talking about, hey, why don't you do another one with a different price point? I want to do a video called basically the same video, 2022. You know what I mean? What guitar would you buy now for $500? And what can you find and update that? So I'm working on that. So hopefully that'll be cool. On that note, I will see most of you guys next Friday. For those of you who watch the other videos during the week, I'll see you during that, or at least I'll see your comments. And guys, hopefully everybody has a fantastic weekend and plays some guitar. And until next Friday, thank you so much for your time, and know your gear.